Today on the Bone Barrel Podcast, we head back to Christmas of 1929 to discuss the Lawson family murders. Then we review the holiday horror classic, 1974's Black Christmas. It's all here today on the Bone Barrel Podcast.
Season's greetings and welcome, Fright Fiends, to another installment of the Bone Barrel Podcast.
So, Brian, I just wanted to, catch up about what's been going on in our lives.
Okay.
Our friend Jess.
Yes.
That we've talked about before.
Yes.
We went and seen Wicked. It was really good. Me, stereotypical, gay guy, apparently, loving musicals.
Uh-huh.
But there was so much comedy and stuff. I recommend anybody to go watch it.
That's cool. I was kind of unsure about it, but...
So it's only part one. It's a 2-part musical. So the first part is what is out right now, and the next part is supposed to be out next year.
Whoa.
So
left it open for a sequel?
Yes, and the timeline is really tricky. The first part takes place before The Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
And then the second part takes place right after the witch melts.
Whoa. So, okay, wait. Because, I guess, spoiler warning for anybody that's listening, but I just got to ask, in this movie, the events of Wizard of Oz, do they happen in the movie?
So in the intro, you see Dorothy walking down the Yellow Brick Road. You don't see her face. You see the back, the back of them, as they're walking towards
with their ruby slippers or whatever.
Yeah, the group walking towards the Emerald City.
Okay.
Like they're heading there, and the camera starts panning back as it goes back to Munchkin Land, and they're like, "The witch is dead!" Woo! They're all running around being happy. They're doing this song called "Nobody Mourns the Wicked." Linda comes down and she's like, talking about how I'm sad for her.
Jeez.
And it comes to find out the song ends and on Ariana Grande's very high pitched note. Ariana Grande. She plays
Ariana Grande.
Yep, she plays Glinda.
Oh.
But she has that high whistle tone like Mariah Carey, and she ends on that. Fun fact, all the singing that is done live. They're not recording in the studio and then edited in. They're singing on
set, camera,
yep.
Like they're capturing it right then and there.
Yep.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
All the singing is done on set.
Wicked Witch of the what and what? How does it go?
Wicked Witch of the West and Glinda Good Witch of the North, I believe.
Okay. But I'm gathering I don't know because I've never seen it, but I'm gathering the Good Witch is kind of an asshole.
No.
Is she kind of a villain?
I'm going to really heavy spoiler, Brian.
Okay.
The Wicked Witch of the West is misunderstood. She's actually the good person.
Well, I figured that's where they were going with it.
And Glinda was her friend. And
maybe I just need to go see it.
You just need to go see it, yeah. But anyway, it's
so good. Am I gonna cry?
If you were the underdog in high school, and everybody picked on you, and you're you just want to fit in, it's gonna touch your soul because that's how Elphaba is. Also, I gotta tell you this, Brian, because you're gonna laugh at this.
Okay. So
Ian, my partner. One day I was talking about how we make the joke that you're a mega mind because you're a big ass head. Well, he said, actually, do you know what he really looks like? And I said, what?
No.
And he goes, Dr. Nitro from Crash Bandicoot?
That motherfucker.
The beard and all?
I'm gonna come find you, Ian. You're fucking dead, bro. Too far.
Hold on, I gotta look
this up. I've seen it. You don't need to look it up.
Tell her he's wrong. He's not wrong.
Look at his underbite.
That's you, though. I'm putting this on Facebook.
If I had the side patches growing out,
You do.
100%. I guess I kind of do right now, actually.
Brian, you should. I'm gonna put your picture side by side with that and send it to Opal and Tiffany. Spot the difference.
Who wore it better? Oh my goodness.
I can't believe you really said that.
That was fucking funny.
But speaking of really, I got something real for you today, Brian.
Okay.
So welcome to Real Horrors. Woo! I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Lawson family.
Okay. I'm strapping in.
So the Lawson family was a tobacco farmer family in the 1920s. This tragedy of this family occurred in Germantown, North Carolina. So Charles Lawson, who was the father, was born May 10th, 1886, and he was born in the town of Lawsonville. No correlation to his last name.
Okay.
He grew up in a sharecropping family. Brian, do you know what a sharecropping family is?
Mm-mm.
They worked on a landowner's property in exchange for a portion of the crop they harvested. So basically it's like, I'll live on your land and harvest your crops, but you got to give me some of it, often resulting in a cycle of debt and limited economic mobility, particularly prevalent in the American South following the Civil War, where every family member, including children, would contribute to the labor on the land to maximize their share of the harvest. There isn't much information on the young years of Charles Lawson because it was the late 1800s, so records are very slim.
Sure.
But in 1911, he married Fanny Manring.
Fanny what?
Fanny Manring.
Fanny Manring. She must have been a dime, dude.
Which he had 8 children with.
Told you.
One of the included children, William, died at the age of 6 years old in 1920 to pneumonia, which at the time, being tragic, was also common in a lot of children, not being able to live to see even teenage years.
Dang.
The other children were Marie Lawson, 17, Arthur, 16, Mary, 12, Maybelle, 7, James, 4, Raymond, 2, and 4-month-old Mary Lou. They managed to scrape up enough money to buy an old farmhouse, old being 200 years old.
Whoa. How cool, though.
Which was located near his brother's farm. So they bought this house 2 years before this tragedy, so in 1927. And at the time of the murders, they had been married for 18 years. The family was known to be a pleasant, working-class family. In fact, Charles was said to be well respected by the community. So, according to a book called White Christmas, Bloody Christmas.
Nice.
No, White Christmas. You're
Black
covering
Christmas.
Black Christmas.
Yes.
Is that funny?
So good. It's fate, bro. It's written in
by
the stars.
Embrace Jones and Trudy J. Smith. The problems began when Charles struck himself in the head one day with a mattock, which is a type of axe.
Okay. What? He struck himself in the head?
So basically, he was doing work outside and he slipped and he slammed it into his forehead.
Okay.
The wound healed, but people say that Charles wasn't the same afterwards.
No shit.
He apparently already had a temper problem beforehand, but they say, like, after this accident, he became more of an angry person.
That's interesting. Without naming names, you know that fella that works at your store. And he had brain surgery at one point. And as he describes it, and lots of people around him describe it, he used to be kind of a dick.
Oh, I know who you're talking about now, yeah.
Yeah, and then he had brain surgery, and he's like the nicest dude ever.
Now, I'm just letting you know this. This is interesting. So the authors of the book were actually a father and daughter team.
Okay.
The father, who was, when he was between 6 and 8 years old, was actually neighbors to the Lawson family. So after the murders, the house became a tourist attraction. So Bruce Jones would remember his mother not letting him go to see this house, but his older sisters would be able to go, and they would come back and just tell him all the details.
Of course.
The cake that was baked and left untouched. There would even be the pillows still on the ground covered in blood right where Charles had left them.
So what happened?
I haven't got to the crime yet.
Okay.
Spoiler, the father did it. So 2 weeks before Christmas, Charles took the entire family out, buying nice fancy outfits, followed by getting a family portrait done.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds pretty normal, right, to you, right?
Sure. Yeah, you go to Fred Meyer and shit, get the Power Ranger,
or
get the
JC
Power
Penney.
Ranger family photo. Yeah, all the above.
He stated it was part of a Christmas surprise.
No. He said, I have a Christmas surprise for you.
Yeah, this is part of it.
Psychotic. Okay, go ahead.
Now, remember, they're a tobacco family in 1929, farm family.
Sure.
So to just go out and spend this money on these fancy outfits, Brian, and then let alone to have their portrait done. Getting your portrait done was like rich people. Like, you got that money.
They're not in a certain economic class that would normally afford these things.
So, Brian, I'm going to show you this picture.
Okay.
So-
Is that the dad on the left?
So yes, that's the dad.
Dude, look at
And
those
on-
look at those eyes, dude.
Look
Frick.
look at all their eyes. Like,
oh, the
so-
poor babies.
so
at
the one holding the
bottom.
baby, that's the mom.
Okay.
The two in the middle, that's the oldest, Arthur, and the oldest, Marie.
Oldest siblings.
Oldest siblings, right?
Damn,
And then
okay.
there's two middle daughters, and then there's two younger kid boys. Not only like do they all look pissed, they're all looking in different directions. They're not. And then Marie, the oldest daughter, which is X's father, is daggers straight at the camera.
Uh-huh.
Like, she looks angry as hell.
I saw that.
Now to get to the crime. Warning to those who are tough with murder, family, little kids.
Yeah, what do you call that shit? Trigger warning?
Trigger warning.
Yeah.
Well, it's about to get brutal. So on December 25th, 1929, 17-year-old Marie woke up and began to make a 2-tier Christmas cake for the holidays. So they were going to have Christmas festivities on the farm, followed by heading to their aunt and uncle's house. The oldest son, Arthur, though, he wanted to go hunting for rabbits. Why not? A little Christmas hunt in the morning.
Sure.
He decides that he wants to go get ready, realizes he doesn't have any shotgun shells.
Okay.
So he's like, well, I'm going to go ask my dad. Dad, do you have any shotgun shells so I can go hunting for some rabbits? So he tells Arthur, no, I don't have any. He's like, why don't you go buy some? That would be a great idea, Sends him off. Now, I'm going to let you know this, Brian. Arthur is the only survivor. Arthur was still buying the bullets when the horrible news started to spread already of what happened.
He was in town when he
He
started
was in
to
town.
hear.
He was literally paying for the shotgun shells.
Fuck.
When all this happened, yeah. So the first people to have actually seen what had happened was Charles's brother, Elijah. Elijah and his sons had stopped by, to say hi. So what they found was the middle daughters, Carrie, who was 12, and Maybelle, 7, had been found in the tobacco barn, shot and bludgeoned to death.
Shot and bludgeoned.
So shot and then beat up.
Okay.
Like with a baseball bat.
Okay.
Peanut butter jelly. Anyway.
Peanut butter and jelly?
With a baseball bat. Anyway.
Oh, so stupid. Okay, I didn't know what you were saying. Okay,
Anyway.
go ahead.
Fanny, the mom, was on the porch with a shotgun blast to the chest.
Whoa.
Just, ooh. No, okay. I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh at this. This is not funny. I'm sorry. I just got it.
Oh my god.
I play a lot of shooter video games, and I
Okay.
just got the thought of just boom, and then it launched,
Richard.
And the body launch is what's funny to me.
Oh my gosh. Have you
I'm
ever
terrible.
Have you ever seen X?
Yes.
Okay, remember when Jenna Ortega takes the shotgun and she fucking just goes flying? That's what I thought of. Damn. Okay, go ahead.
We're terrible people.
We're horrible people. Yeah, Jesus
Okay, I am
forgive
sorry,
us.
Lawson
Okay.
family. If you hear me now, I am sorry.
Yeah,
I don't mean to laugh. This is horrible.
Yeah, we're just a couple of dumbasses. We apologize. Go ahead.
So,
But come on.
different Brian, stop. Okay, inside, Marie, the oldest daughter, was sprawled out near the fireplace, shot. James, the 4-year-old, and Raymond, the 2-year-old, had been beaten and shot, and even the youngest, 4-month-old Mary Lou, was found dead inside her crib.
That's awful.
Charles was nowhere to be found. Pretty quickly, law enforcement and neighbors, because back then, you can't stop people from getting on the crime scene and messing with evidence and
Yeah,
nosy.
neighbors and stuff were like on the property and in the land and stuff, or what?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was hard to stop people back then.
Okay.
But they were all swarming the scene. Like, they could be walking through blood and then trailing blood everywhere. Well,
Okay.
that's what I'm talking about. Like, preservation of evidence isn't heavy back then.
Anyway.
Serial killer wasn't even a term yet. The term serial killer was coined in the 1970s.
Whoa. Crazy.
And there's been so many serial killers before that. Even though people couldn't find him, his whereabouts would soon be known when everyone heard a single shotgun blast that originated from deep within the woods behind the farmhouse. He had actually run into the woods several hours earlier after killing his family, pacing around in the woods. After they heard the shotgun blast, the law enforcement actually let loose the family's 2 pet beagles, which led to Charles.
Whoa. Crazy. Okay.
On Charles' body, there was 2 notes. One was said to be to his parents, but nobody actually knows. One said, "Troubles can cause,"
Is this fucking Jeopardy? What? Okay.
And then
I'll take...
Damn it, Brian. And the other one said, no one to blame but...
What a psycho.
So they actually would find footprints circling a tree, and the path, he circled this tree so many times, it was deep in the snow.
No.
Like, you just walk on this tree.
Like SpongeBob and shit or something. Yeah. What the heck? Okay, you knew exactly what I was talking about.
It was really deep down the snow, yeah.
This trench, okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Whoa.
He apparently had been going around it many times before finally killing himself with a shotgun.
How sad.
So, after seeing the entire scene, law enforcement was able to kind of paint a picture of what had happened. So Charles had sent Arthur away to get shotgun shells. Then he began with the two middle daughters who were just heading to meet their aunt and uncle. However, behind the tobacco barn, Charles was waiting with a shotgun in hand.
Mm-hmm.
He shot both of his daughters, then bludgeoned them to finish them off, then placed their bodies inside the barn. Then returned to the family home where Fanny, who was only 37 years old. We do not support gun violence on the podcast.
No, absolutely not.
Um,
I do support gun rights.
Where Fanny 37 was on the porch, immediately shooting her, then moving her aside. That's okay. That's why I laughed earlier because
he Jenna Ortega this woman.
He just went boom, and then it's like, okay, out of the way. So then he walked into the home where the oldest Marie and the two youngest boys were. Mm-hmm. He shot Marie, and then the two youngest, Brian, they ran and hid. Mm-hmm. A 2 and 4 year old.
Oh, Richard!
They're like, quick,
I don't want to hear this.
We gotta run and hide. Daddy's crazy.
Gosh,
he found them. And gave them each a shotgun blast and then bludgeoned them.
That's awful.
Finally getting baby Mary Lou, he bludgeoned her, resulting in death from a skull fracture.
I think people get possessed, man. That's what I think.
So
I think there's obviously something to be said for mental illness and things like and things of that nature. But
Brian, it gets worse. He then posed all their bodies with their hands crossed over their chest, like in funeral position.
Dude.
Laying rocks under their heads as pillows. This is also a speculative thing because people say this, but it's not proven, that he put rocks over their eyes, like little rocks on their eyes. So at the time, because of the, like, you know, financials and stuff like that, the entire family was all buried together in a single plot. That includes the father.
Whoa.
So imagine, like,
he killed himself.
The victims and your murderer all laying together in the same plot. Like, you have to live the rest of eternity next to your murderer.
Yeah.
Which was your own father.
Yeah, what if their souls are, like, not at rest and they're all stuck together?
So they were buried together in the Brouwer Family Cemetery just outside of Germantown. Brian, over 5,000 people attended the funeral.
Whoa. Why?
Because it was the biggest thing.
Because it was a huge thing that had happened.
And a lot of people just liked the family. Now, Charles' brain was actually removed from his corpse before they buried him for analysis. Because they want to know what made him do that. There must be some brain, like, tumor, or when he got hit with the axe. There must
when
be
did
some...
this happen? 1929?
Yes. They took out his brain and sent it to Baltimore to Johns Hopkins Hospital.
Okay.
They were hoping to find something that would, like, cause him to commit this horrible thing. Some physiological justification, like brain tumor, or the injury, the head trauma from when he hit himself with the axe. Sure. After doing the analysis of his brain, there was nothing wrong. His brain was perfectly fine. Sure. There was no damage. There was no sign of brain damage
because science can't explain it.
There was no, like, unnecessary, bumps or anything on his brain. His brain was perfectly normal. Wow. So the town went crazy over this case, Brian. Charles's brother, Marion, saw this as an opportunity. The freaking brother of this family. He's like, oh, I'm going to charge everybody 25 cents to tour the house.
No, he didn't. So his own flesh and blood was murdered, suffered a tragedy. And he used their property to gain a profit for himself. Yep. And not only that, Brian, so I want you to think this. This is 1929. So nowadays, with crime scene cleanup, the crime scene would be cleaned up, within a day or two, right? Back then, they didn't have that. So this crime scene would exist. Like, everything would still be there. The blood splatters,
The weapon might still be there. The
Let's
cake.
just look, it happened right there.
The cake. Yeah, right there is right where Marie was shot, and she's laid right there in front of the fireplace. There's the blood spot. Here's the cake that Here's the cake that she made that morning, and it's still here with raisins on it. She put raisins on this cake. So,
is that why he lost it? Because who the fuck puts raisins on a cake?
No. Yeah. So people would go up to the cake and take a raisin as a souvenir.
No, wait a minute. No,
You didn't hear
I
it.
didn't hear it at
you
first.
Didn't pick it up.
That's no.
Like, ooh, a souvenir of the murder. Eventually, after 5 years of tours of this murder house, they encased the cake in glass so people would stop stealing the fucking raisins.
Wow.
Brian, do you know
Didn't this thing like deteriorate and like mold over and
I guess,
shit? Or...
but the people were still taking the fucking raisins.
Wow.
Brian, do you know who John Dillinger is?
No.
So John Dillinger is a famous American gangster. He was on one of those tours, like he went and seen the house.
Oh. Johnny Depp played him in that movie, didn't he?
Probably. So the house was eventually demolished, and people now say they see the ghosts of the children.
Ew, what?
Sometimes Charles himself. And you want to hear something really freaky, Brian?
Yes.
Sometimes the ghost of Charles, you see him at the edge of the woods looking back at you.
Whoa. So where is this again?
Germantown, North Carolina.
Richard, how cool would it be if we were able to like visit some of these locations at some point?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Brian, I literally told you, Brian, I was like, I will find out how to get it. Ghost hunting. Like, I'm obsessed with people doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and I want to do it sometime. But I'm not doing it by alone. And I want to do this method. It's called the Estes method, which you blindfold yourself. You put, like, the headphones you're wearing right now on, but they're soundproof, so you only hear what's going through the headphones, where it flips through channels, and the ghosts use that to talk. Is what they do. You had to see ghost hunting shows before. They do it all the time.
I've seen them.
Where it goes...
I'm going to tell you right now, I might screw it up for us from the beginning because I'm going to be praying to Jesus. That's probably...
that doesn't help.
Of course it would.
Sometimes it does, but sometimes it doesn't.
Nah, all of them.
They might target you more.
That's fine.
You can throw it across the room.
I've got the ultimate power on my side, bro.
Cue Brian
it ain't
spinning
happening.
in the air. Anyway, the Estes method is what I was trying to tell you. Soundproof headphones, spirit box, flipping through the radio, right? Everybody else around you will ask questions, right? And people will get answers to their questions because basically the spirit's talking through you.
Oh, hell no, I'm not doing that. Hell no.
But they're not talking through you. They're talking through the spirit box, but you're saying it.
I'm not going to do that. I mean, I suppose if you wanted to try, but I'm telling you right now, I'm praying over you.
Okay. There's also there's a legend, Brian, that says every time it snows on everybody else's gravestone but Charles. And in the fall, when the leaves fall, they fall on all the graves but his. So many books and, Brian, songs were written about this case.
Like folk songs or what?
Bluegrass. Yeah, they're called murder ballads. Brian, I'm going to tell you this right now. Parents would sing these songs as lullabies to their children.
Oh, sure.
It's like, yeah, he's going to come and get you. Don't,
And the kids all...
having nightmares. So the one big thing about this case, and it's not known, is why did he do it? So I'm gonna give you there's theories.
And there was no motive.
Build up. He just did it.
It was just out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And his Riddler ass notes.
So I'm going to give you the theories. The first theory is obviously already proven out by what I've told you.
Okay.
So the first theory is Charles had a medical condition from hitting himself with a mattock. And they also say that he had a growth on his chest, which caused him so much pain, he did it because of the pain. Yeah, which has already been proven wrong. Theory 2, Charles was having an affair with his oldest daughter, Marie.
Yuck. Okay.
And she may have been pregnant with her father's baby.
Oh my gosh. What is up with all these dudes molesting their daughters?
So Marie actually went to a friend's sleepover and was telling her friend. She literally just told her friend, like, yeah, I'm sleeping with my dad.
Ew.
And I think I might be pregnant.
Oh my gosh. And how old was she?
17. 16,
Dude.
17.
My.
17, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, now you look at that picture now differently, Brian. So
Yeah, he's all standing next to her.
and anyway,
And she's all dead-eyeing the camera.
anyway, it was said that also apparently that at one point, Charles actually went up to his oldest daughter, Marie, and said that there would be some killing done about this.
About her pregnancy?
Yeah.
Like, I knocked you up and now I'm gonna murder.
Yeah. There's also theories why Arthur, the oldest, who was sent off to get shotgun shells, was spared. So theory 1, Arthur was sent away because if he was there, he would have been able to stop his father being larger than him and also a better shot with a gun. He's like, oh, I can't handle him. I'm gonna have to send him away so I can kill everybody.
Sure, he's the most capable of thwarting my plans.
Theory 2, Charles was gonna murder Arthur as well once he returned from the store, but it all fell apart because his brother showed up before Arthur returned. Theory 3. Arthur knew that Marie wasn't pregnant, and only Arthur could spread the word of there being no pregnancy. And then theory 4 is, at the time, carrying on the family name was a big thing.
Sure.
So him being the oldest, he was left alive to pass the name on.
And nobody ever... That's funny.
And
nobody ever figured out why he did it.
Just theories and speculations.
That was crazy. I can't believe that somebody is capable of
murdering 6 children of
their
own flesh and blood.
Yeah, and then like seeing the picture of those poor kids, like he's raping not raping, but certainly he's.
But apparently the family knew about it. Like,
what?
Or at least the mom knew about it. That's why the mom looked pissed in the picture and was like, I'm not standing near you. And so everybody in that picture is upset is because, like, there's some tension going on. That was the Lawson family murders that happened in 1929.
Christmas Day, 1929. How sad.
All right, Brian, and now I'm going to hand it off to you.
Woohoo! Welcome to Horror Reels, where we discuss in-depth reviews of horror films and TV shows.
So, Brian, what do you got for us today?
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about 1974's Black Christmas. I really just love this movie so much. There's so much that I want to say about it, but I'm going to try to keep it as efficient as possible.
Well, Brian, I'm just going to say this. When you say Black Christmas, every time I just imagine like it's a parody movie.
It makes
like a Medea movie.
It makes me think of Medea. It makes me think of like Tyler Perry's Medea's Black Christmas. What's funny about that, when it was first released in America, the executives wanted it retitled, and it was briefly retitled as Silent Night, Evil Night. The concern at the time was that audiences might mistake it for a blaxploitation film, which were pretty popular at the time.
Oh, yeah.
This was released in Canada in October of 1974, and then it was released in America in December of 1974. We're actually celebrating the 50th anniversary of the American release this month. And as always, this is the Bone Barrel Podcast, and these cuts are heavily spoiled. This movie was directed by Bob Clark, who nearly a decade later would direct another holiday cult classic, 1984's A Christmas Story. Have you ever seen A Christmas Story?
A Christmas Story, you'll shoot your eye out, kid?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh my god.
Gets the tongue stuck on the pole.
Wants the Red Ryder BB gun.
Yes, thank you. I couldn't remember the name of it. Bob Clark injected a lot of humor into the screenplay. The screenplay was drastically different before he got his hands on it. Screenplay by Roy Moore, by the way. This was shot on location in Toronto in Ontario, Canada. Upon its release, Black Christmas was initially met with mixed reviews, but in the years since has gained cult status and has been widely reappraised as an early blueprint and cornerstone of the slasher subgenre. Black Christmas has also been reappraised as a feminist film due to its innovative handling of its female characters, coupled with plot themes of misogyny, female vulnerability, and empowerment in the face of violence and evil.
But you say empowerment, so then they get empowered?
Well, in Black Christmas, the handling of the female characters, they're not helpless. They're very resourceful. They're intelligent.
Stronger together.
Yeah, absolutely, in a lot of ways. And they're not like, obviously, they're victims, but they're not like victims, you know what I mean? They're strong and they make smart decisions, and especially Jess, the final girl of the film, as we'll see, she's just a badass. If there was a Mount Rushmore of final girls, Jess from 1974's Black Christmas would have to be up there somewhere with like maybe Sidney Prescott and Nancy from A Nightmare on Elm Street. You know?
What's her name? The sister from Halloween.
Why, of course, Laurie Strode. But certainly Jess came before all these gals, and this movie set the standard in a lot of ways, Final Girls included. Black Christmas's influence on horror films is nothing short of immeasurable, and it can be felt from John Carpenter's Halloween through Wes Craven's Scream and beyond. Black Christmas is quite possibly a masterpiece, and it's one of the finest films the horror genre has to offer. Period. The movie starts and we fade in and we see our first character of the film, which is the sorority house at night, and it's lit up with Christmas lights and there's snow outside, and we get this droning and almost like creepy rendition of Silent Night, Holy Night as the credits roll over the house. We see Jess, played by Olivia Hussey, approaching, and she enters through the front door and there's a Christmas party happening inside.
Hussy?
Yeah.
Isn't that a derogatory term, too?
Yeah, like a hoe.
So, growing up, she probably had a rough time.
Mm-hmm. What did Angela say on The Office? Looks like someone took the slow train to Memphis, or what is it?
Whoa. I've not seen The Office, Brian.
Oh, what?
I'm not, I tried watching it.
Dang it.
People are going to turn off now.
That's not for everybody, but yeah, it's so funny. At least until Steve Carell left, and then it was like, eh. Inside, they're having a Christmas party, and we cut to the point of view of a heavy breather approaching the house, and he's assessing the house, and he's peering through the windows, and we cut back inside the sorority where Barb, played by Margot Kidder, she's pissed that someone left the front door open and she closes it. I know her best from this, but Margot Kidder, certainly she played Lois Lane in the original Superman movies with Christopher Reeve. Margot Kidder's awesome, and she's wonderful in this. So she closes the front door, and we see the POV outside retreat to a side of the house where he finds and he climbs up a lattice. Now back inside, everyone is celebrating, and Barb is chatting with Phyllis, they call her Phil, played by Andrea Martin, and Patrick, played by Michael Rapport, I think is how you say it. Andrea Martin, she's in this. She plays Phil. She's awesome. She also played the character of Mrs. Mack in the 2006 remake of Black Christmas. On a side note, Phil was originally supposed to be played by comedian Gilda Radner, who dropped out to commit to a new sketch comedy show airing the next year that would be called Saturday Night Live.
Ooh, wait, Saturday Night Live started out in 1975?
Fall of 75, maybe
Damn.
October. And I don't think it was called Saturday Night Live at the time. I think it was just Saturday Night. Yeah, but anyway, so the house phone rings and it's loud and jarring, and Jess answers.
And it's that old style phone.
Yes, it's the rotary style.
You ain't missing that call.
Dude.
If you miss that call, you're ignoring it.
The house phone rings and Jess answers, and it's for Barb, who's drinking what looks like whiskey. And Barb says that she'll take the call in the next room. So outside, the heavy breather is climbing into the sorority house through an attic window. We see him climbing in. And downstairs, Barb is shouting at the guests in the next room to shut up so she can hear on the phone. We get a great shot peering down the stairs from the second floor, down the stairs at Barb, who's on the phone. And we pan up away from that shot and into the second floor hallway, and then the opening up into the attic. And it's a little nook in the wall with a wooden ladder built in.
Yeah, old-fashioned houses would have this.
Yes, and it's super cool. I would love to have something like that.
No, you wouldn't.
Oh, I would love it so much.
Somebody might sneak up in your house.
Okay. So we see the opening, the ladder built into that little nook, and we see the opening up in the ceiling, and we cut to the POV in the attic, and it's opening the attic door and looking down the ladder as Barb is on the phone downstairs, and he climbs down the ladder. Barb is on the phone with her mom, and she's clearly got a buzz on, and she's discussing plans to take a train to meet with her mom for Christmas. And we follow the POV watching her from upstairs, and we're gathering from her conversation on the phone that Barb's mom is totally ditching her to spend Christmas with a new boyfriend, and it's sad. So we cut to Claire, played by Lynn Griffin, kissing her boyfriend Chris, played by Art Hindle. They're kissing goodnight at the front door. He's leaving the party, and we establish that she's meeting family and she's going to be gone for the holiday. Chris leaves, and Barb is clearly disappointed, and she tells her mom that she'll be fine, and she gets off the phone. And we follow Barb back into the party, and her shoulders are slumped, and she looks super bummed. And she makes plans to go skiing with Jess and Phil, and they're clearly going with her because they overheard the conversation and they feel bad for her. And Claire declines going because she's got plans to leave town, and Barb is clearly offended. So the house phone rings once more, and Jess answers, and she's going, hello? hello? And we can't hear over the noises of the party. And then she tells everyone to be quiet. It's him again, the moaner. So he's clearly called before, so much so that they've nicknamed him.
Well, just to be clear to our listeners right now, Brian has gladly showed me the first 15 minutes of the film. So
It was actually 17, but yeah. Oh, I have to ask you, Richard, what did you think of it?
I'm going to go watch it when I get home.
Oh, yes.
Mrs. Mac, when you start talking about her. I'm going to get back to her.
She's so awesome. So the phone rings and Jess says, quiet, it's the moaner. And the girls all gather to listen to the call, and Jess holds the phone up for everyone to hear. And there's a close-up on the phone. It's a bunch of garbled and strained, like choking, pukish, and laughing noises and like screaming. The dude sounds possessed. Like all this like just weird shit that he's spewing out in all these different voices and pitches and noises. It's a great shot. It's a close-up shot panning from each girl's face to the next, capturing their individual reactions as the moaner is making like pig noises, and he's saying a bunch of super crude and obscene stuff. I'm not going to repeat it. It's really disturbing and it's hard to listen to. And these gals are like, he's just saying all these horrible, putrid things.
I was like, whoa.
And it's all while Hark the Herald Angels Sing is playing in the background, by the way, which like even makes it so much worse, is like that dichotomy. Barb takes the phone. She's not impressed. And she has a back and forth with the moaner, and she calls him a fucking creep. And he just switches off the crazy and he says, I'm going to kill you. And then he hangs up.
And you hear a click.
Claire, the one that was kissing her boyfriend goodnight, she's all big-eyed, mousy. She's saying you shouldn't have provoked him to Barb, and that a girl in town was raped a couple weeks back, and Barb doesn't give a shit, and she goes, you can't rape a townie. Like, they're all whores is basically what she's saying.
Oh, okay. I was confused at what she meant by that. Damn.
Barb doesn't give a shit, and she's super rude and dismissive about the whole thing, and again, she's getting pretty drunk. And Claire's had enough. The whole group of girls kind of witnesses this thing, Barb kind of picking on Claire. And Claire goes up the stairs. Jess tries to stop her. She clearly feels bad. And Claire says, no, it's fine. I've got to pack anyway. So she heads up as Mrs. Mack, played by Marion Waldman, comes knocking at the front door. And she's carrying a pile of Christmas presents. Mrs. Mack is the house mother of the sorority. The girls are all excited to see her, and upstairs in Claire's room, we see her close the door, and she's cutting off the sound of the party downstairs, and she greets the house cat Claude and gives him some snugs.
Which, by the way, I want that cat.
Oh, such a big, fluffy buddy. She gives Claude some snugs, and then she puts him down, and she goes to her closet, and she takes some clothes hanging up in her closet out, by the hangers. There's some hanging up in her closet that are covered in like plastic dry cleaning bags, and she begins packing at her bed, and we see as the audience that someone is clearly standing behind the plastic in the closet. Claire begins to hear meowing coming from the closet as she's packing, and she follows the sound, believing it to be Claude, and she approaches the closet and she's going, who is that? Who is that? She's getting closer and closer, and the killer finally jumps out.
By the way, who is that? Oh, you see somebody in there, so you're going to get closer. Not to be racist or anything, but white people. What the hell?
100%. I'm sorry.
Leave! If I see somebody behind plastic in my closet, I'm out the door.
There are cultural differences, and that's okay. And unfortunately,
What is that?
I think that may be one of them.
What is that? Let me go see.
That, and y'all don't lock your doors. I don't know.
Barb, is that you?
From his perspective in the closet, we can see him watching her packing. So she's coming to the closet and she's going, who is that? And he jumps out and he wraps the plastic around her head. And we get this close-up shot of her wrapped up in the plastic, gasping for breath, and it's awful. And as she's gasping, we cut to the girls all downstairs.
Which I'm going to tell you this, Brian, not to be stereotypical to women, but this happens.
It's a bunch of hens clucking. It's like 10, 12 of them?
Yes.
Young girls in their 20s, college girls, all around the house mother that they adore.
Yes, and that's
they bought
realistic.
her a nightgown, and they can't hear Claire over the collective splattering of their eggs on the floorboards.
The splattering of their eggs on the floorboards.
They're just so
I'm not gonna compare them to hens like you, Brian. I'm just saying women do get excited, and then they're all getting going. It's like hyping each other up.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
And men do that too, actually, really, if you think about it.
Yeah, men and women have their cliches, races have their cliches. These things happen. So the girls all bought Mrs. Mack like a kind of like a tent of a nightgown, and they're pleading with her to try it on. And Barb, of course, is drinking, and it's a bunch of gals. We get the same shot as before where we're peering down the stairs. We pan back up, and as we're panning up, we go over the second floor hallway, and we see the shadow of the killer carrying a body. It's clearly Claire. And we slowly pan up just in time to the attic door to see it closed. So the killer took Claire's body up into the
Brian,
attic.
I'm gonna when it was like doing that slow pan towards the attic like entryway, was I hearing thumping? Like the body's getting thumped up the stairs, like up the ladder?
I think so. Maybe like her feet dragging
Yeah.
against the railings or something. What's creepy to me about that shot is the way that it's set up. Is you're looking down the stairs, you pan up, and you see his shadow coming to the side of you. And he clearly, if you really think about it, he goes behind you as the audience because you turn up and around behind yourself.
Oh God!
And
Don't.
you look. You see what I'm saying? Like, I really
I didn't
love
see that now, but now I do.
So the attic door closes. Downstairs, Mrs. Mack says it's time to end the party and get to bed, and the girls all take off. And we see Mrs. Mack sneak away into a den where she pulls a book from a bookshelf and she opens it. And
Which I think is a Bible, but
I'd never noticed that, but you might be right. Because she says B for boo.
or it's encyclopedia.
It could be, yeah. But she pulls it down and it's carved out on the inside and she's got a
Classic
bottle of booze
move.
in there, yeah. She takes a quick swig and she's nearly caught by Jess before she puts the book back on the shelf. And the phone rings again and there's a moment of tension. Phil answers the phone. It's Peter, Jess's boyfriend, and Jess takes the call. Peter is played by Keir Dullea, is I believe how you say it. He was the main character in Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey. Really cool. It's clear from their conversation on the phone that Jess has bad news for Peter and he can sense it. They arrange to meet the next day. So we cut to Mrs. Mack brushing her teeth in the bathroom and she starts looking around.
She's looking in the medicine cabinet, and then Brian, can I say this part?
Please. Take it away, please.
She's reaching around in the medicine cabinet. She slides one way, nope, slides the other, and then, thinks about it. And then she lifts the toilet lid off the back of the toilet, pulls a little string up, and there's another bottle of whiskey.
So disgusting.
And I was like, and then she goes, ooh, like she's all excited for it.
She's so psyched that she hid that in there. And she pulls it out and opens it up, and she rinses out her toothpaste with it, and then she takes a swig with it. Dude, it's so disgusting. Like, I can't even... That scene is awful. Jess goes knocking on Claire's door, and there's no answer, obviously. And Jess walks away, and we cut to a close-up of Claire.
Who's got a plastic bag over her face, up in the attic in a rocking chair.
Yes, and she's dead, and the chair is rocking, and the plastic is, like, sucked into her mouth from when she was trying to breathe. We can hear the killer singing this creepy ass lullaby to her.
Nursery rhyme, whatever it is.
Nursery rhyme, yes. As we fade to the exterior of a campus bell tower where a well-dressed older gentleman is checking his watch. He's suddenly hit in the face with a snowball. This young teacher approaches and he apologizes, and we gather from their conversation that the older gentleman is Claire's father, the girl that just died. It's her father, Mr. Harrison, played by James Edmund. And he was supposed to meet Claire, and she obviously never showed. And the young teacher knows Claire, and he gives Mr. Harrison directions to her sorority. So we cut to a children's party at a frat house run by Barb and Phil and Patrick. And Patrick is dressed as Santa, and he has kids on his lap, and he's not psyched about it. He's cursing in front of the kids.
Oh my God.
And Barb, of course, is in the background, and she's drinking. We cut to the interior of Claire's room, and there's a poster of a grandma getting up from her rocker and flipping off the camera. Her dad, Mr. Harrison, is surveying the room unapprovingly while Mrs. Mack is kind of standing by nervously. And Mrs. Mack spots an obscene poster on the wall, and she nervously tries to cover it up with her hand, and Mr. Harrison, of course, sees it, and Mr. Harrison spots a framed picture of Claire's boyfriend, Chris. He expresses that he didn't enroll his daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys. And Mrs. Mack assures him that Claire is a good kid and is probably at the fraternity house at the children's party, and she'd be happy to show him where it is if he'll give her a ride into town. So we cut to Mrs. Mack in the bathroom, and she's taking swigs of her toilet booze, and she mockingly impersonates Mr. Harrison, and she's going, "I didn't send my daughter here to be drinking and picking up boys." she's in the bathroom. She hears Claude meowing, and she follows the sound into the second floor hallway. And she's calling for him, and he's not coming. And she drops her purse, and her stuff kind of scatters everywhere. And she's picking it up, and she's calling for him. Here, kitty, kitty, kitty. Come on, Claudikins. And she gets pissed, and she calls him a little prick. She goes, Claude, you little prick. Just as Mr. Harrison comes up the stairs, and they kind of meet face to face. And she turns on her sweet Mrs. Mac roll again, and she expresses her gratitude for the ride. And then he says, no problem, and he heads down the stairs, and she flips him off the moment he turns away. She's awesome. So then we cut to an overhead shot watching Mrs. Mac and Mr. Harrison as they walk through the snow to Mr. Harrison's car. We're kind of looking down at them, and the camera pulls back, and we're revealing that we're looking out through the attic window, and Claire's lifeless body is in the rocker right next to the window. Her dad is outside, like, on the lookout for her, and she's right there. We cut to the interior of a music conservatory. It's a small music hall, and Jess tells Peter, her boyfriend, who sits at his piano, that she's pregnant. And Peter's excited, but Jess informs him that she's not going to keep the baby. He's pissed. And he's kind of a dick about it, and he says things like, well, you didn't even ask me. He also alludes to an important recital that he has later this afternoon. He's like, why would you tell me this right now? They're arguing. She doesn't really feel that there's anything more to discuss, and she leaves, but not before Peter convinces her to meet tonight so they can talk. So then we cut to the children's frat house party again, and Mr. Harrison is now there. He's obviously looking for Claire. She's not there. He's on the phone with his wife, and he's informing her that he hasn't found Claire yet, but he doesn't think anything is wrong. In the background, Barb is giving this 8-year-old boy alcohol. Like, she's clearly like, she's got her arm around him, and she's like giving him some booze, and she's like, look at him, he's schnockered. And the kid's like, like drinking the mommy juice. So she's getting this kid all boozed up. Back at the sorority house, the phone rings, and Jess runs down the stairs, and she answers it. Hello? And it's silence. And we're slowly zooming in on Jess. And after a few more hellos, the killer answers with this high-pitched, Billy! And Jess says he has the wrong number. His voice starts going from these guttural lows to strained high pitches. He's saying things like, what your mother and I must know is, where did you put the baby? Where did you put Agnes, Billy? But he's like saying it in all these different creepy voices. Where did you put Agnes? And he's going, Billy! He's screaming. I know it sounds absurd, but it's really awful to listen to. It's just gross. Once he's established himself as Billy on the phone, that's how we as the audience know him. His name is Billy. So Jess hangs up, and we cut to the interior of the police station, and Barb and Phil and Mr. Harrison are speaking with Sergeant Nash, played by Doug McGrath, about Claire. Now, Sergeant Nash is just kind of your typical bumbling cop, not like Bordello of Blood, sloppy. He's just inept. He's just not very intelligent. He's not very good at putting two and two together. You know what I mean? They're telling him, look, our friend Claire is missing, and Sergeant Nash is skeptical, and he informs them, look, most campus girls that go missing are usually shacked up with a boyfriend somewhere. So he's telling them, like, I don't got time for this shit. She's probably off with some guy. And back at the sorority house, Jess answers the front door to Mrs. Mac, who's carrying an armload of shopping bags. Jess helps her out, and we establish that the front door is broken, and it jams when it's shut.
Sounds like it's a weather issue. You know how doors swell from
possibly because it's an old wooden house. Yep. At this house, they shot the exterior and interior all in one place. It's the same place. There's no sets as far as the house is concerned.
Oh, the house is the set.
Like, literally, if you had the money to, you could possibly buy this place and live there. House-wise, like, that's top-tier goal right there. Jess tells Mrs. Mac about the call that just happened, and Mrs. Mac seems more concerned about the bottle of hooch that she's fishing out of the hall closet. Back at the police station, Sergeant Nash is asking Barb for the number to the sorority house. This part is awesome. It's super funny. I don't want to butcher it. Barb fucks with the cops in this scene. It's hilarious. Watch the movie because you should be watching it anyway. So we cut to an ice rink on campus, and a hockey team is practicing. Jess approaches the hockey rink, and she waves down one of the hockey players, and it's Chris, Claire's boyfriend, the dead girl's boyfriend. She asks if he's seen Claire, and of course he hasn't. She informs him that Claire's been missing and her father has been looking for her, and she tells him they went to the police, but they weren't much help. And he asks why, and Jess says that the police figured maybe she was off with some guy, and Chris looks pissed. So we cut to the music hall, where Peter is frantically sweating through a clashing piece of music before a small panel of judges, and he's slamming on the keys, and I don't know if it's like supposed to sound like that or if he's like messing up a lot. It doesn't sound very good. The panel doesn't look thrilled. He finishes, and he clearly knows the score. He's blown the recital. We cut back to the police station where this woman, Mrs. Quaife, played by Martha Gibson, she's reporting that her 13-year-old daughter is missing. Now, if we remember, Claire mentioned that there was a girl that was raped in town a few weeks back. Now there's a 13-year-old girl missing. Mrs. Quaife is speaking with Lieutenant Ken Fuller, played by John Saxon. He, in another 10 years, would go on to play another lieutenant, Nancy Thompson's dad, in A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Oh, wow.
John Saxon is awesome. Claire's boyfriend, Chris, comes barging to the police station with Jess close behind, and he's outraged that nothing is being done to find Claire. And Lieutenant Fuller hears the commotion, and he comes out, and he offers to speak with them, and he takes Chris and Jess into his office. So back at the sorority, it's nighttime. Mrs. Mack, Mr. Miller, and Phil are finishing a meal in the dining room, but Mr. Miller isn't eating much. He's clearly anxious, and he feels that he should be doing something. Barb is drinking on a couch nearby. She's plastered.
Of course. Drunk party girl.
Yeah, drunk party girl, but still
From the
like
city.
opinionated and strong-willed, and like she's not a pushover. She does have some unfavorable qualities. She's also kind of a badass. She gets up and she informs everyone. She goes, "Did you know that there's a species of turtle that screws for 3 days without stopping?" She says she knows because she went down to the zoo and she watched them, but it was very boring. And she says she's lucky if she gets 3 minutes. She's trashed, and she has a laughing fit, and she falls back onto the couch. No one really knows what to say. They're all just kind of staring at her. This is a really wonderful little moment for Margot Kidder as an actress, because she really sells not only being drunk, but then having this laughing fit, kind of falling back and looking at everybody quietly, just watching her, and her face goes from drunken laughter and it like slowly fades down, and she starts to look sad with herself and then kind of pissed at them, and she starts accusing them, and she's saying, "You think it's my fault, don't you?" And she's saying things like, "That's what you're all thinking. Why don't you just come out and say it? You've been hinting at it all afternoon. You think I drove her away." And then Barb says, "And if she's dead, you'll blame me." And this clearly stings Claire's dad, Mr. Harrison. And Mrs. Mack tells Barb that she's had too much to drink, and Barb gets pissed and starts ranting some more. And Phil, Barb's friend, tells her she's drunk and to go to bed. And Phil is clearly ashamed of her friend, and Barb finally goes. So we cut to the music hall, and Peter has detached the lid of his piano. He sends it crashing to the floor, and he picks up a mic stand, and he swings.
Oh my God.
He swings the mic stand like a mallet into the interior of the piano over and over, and he destroys it. Back at the sorority, Jess and Chris arrive to touch base with Mr. Harrison and Mrs. Mack and Phil. Barb is asleep now upstairs. Everyone except Mrs. Mack leaves, and Mrs. Mack catches Phil on her way out the door, and she tells her that she's going to be visiting her sister for the holiday, and that when they all get back, she's going to be gone. We cut to the park. It's night. It's cold out. Lieutenant Fuller has organized a joint search party for both Claire and the missing 13-year-old girl. We see that Mr. Miller, Phil, Chris, and Jess have all joined the search party. So back at the house, Mrs. Mack is packing up, and she's swigging booze, and she's singing show tunes to herself. Her taxi honks outside, and she's going, "All right, I hear ya." And then she hears Claude yowling somewhere in the house. And if you remember, she never found him earlier. And so she starts searching the second floor again, and she's calling for him. And as the audience, we see that the yowling is coming from the attic, and Mrs. Mack hears it, and she begins to climb up the ladder to the attic. And Mrs. Mack climbs up just enough to poke her head and shoulders through the opening, and her eyes are searching the dark and cluttered attic. Behind her in the darkness, we can see a pair of hands holding tightly to a hook and pulley. Mrs. Mack is squinting and continues scanning the attic, and her eyes suddenly go wide, and she sees Claire's body asphyxiated and dead in the rocker near the window. She gasps, and she hears Billy mumbling behind her, and she slowly turns, and she sees the pair of hands holding the hook, and we see from his perspective, we can, see her looking at him, and we can see his hands holding it, and he swings the hook at her, and it catches Mrs. Mack in the throat, and she's pulled spasming up into the attic, and she drops a shoe through the opening. It's fucked up.
And not only that, I just realized something. She said that she'd be gone by the time everybody get back, so nobody's gonna know.
Exactly. So nobody's expecting her to be there. So downstairs, the taxi driver is knocking at the front door. When Claire died and her voice was cut off by all the noise downstairs, it's the same thing. Mrs. Mack is like screaming and getting pulled up, and we cut to the taxi cab driver pounding and yelling at the front door. And he can't hear her because he's, hey, kung, kung, kung. There's no answer, and he leaves. We cut to Billy's perspective as he watches through the attic window, and the driver walks through the snow and back to his cabin. He takes off, and Billy begins raging and screaming and destroying the interior of the attic. He's just insane. At the park, Jess, Claire's boyfriend Chris, Phil, and Mr. Harrison all huddle around a barrel fire. Jess tells them that she has to meet up with Peter, and they tell her that they will keep her updated. We cut to the exterior of the house where we get a nice panning shot from ground level going up, and it rises up and over the front of the house and up into the attic window, and we can clearly see Claire in the window from outside. She is right there. So we cut back to the park, and a woman screams at something she's found, and it's off camera. We don't see it, but people start to gather. It's clearly a body. And the mother, Mrs. Quaife, who reported her daughter missing, approaches, and now she screams. Back at the sorority, the phone rings loudly as Jess walks through the front door, and she answers the phone, and it's Billy. And there's choking noises and gasping, and he's saying, help me, please stop me. And she's going, what do you want? And he screams, filthy Billy! And it's a bunch of unintelligible scream ranting, and it sounds chastising or berating in nature, like it's directed at a child. And he begins chuckling, and Jess hangs up on him. Jess dials the police, and she wants to report the obscene phone calls. And behind her, we get that shot again, looking down the stairs, only this time it's a POV shot, and it starts coming down the stairs as she's on the phone. She's on the other side of the stair railing, and it's coming down the stairs, and it's approaching her. And it puts a coat down on the railing, and she turns around all scared, and it's Peter. Peter is clearly pissy. He's rude and short with her. She asks how the recital went, and he's going, how do you think? Jess gets back on the phone with the police, and we cut to the police station where we see that Sergeant Nash is the officer on the phone with Jess. He takes her information, and he tells her he will report it, and they will try to get an officer on it soon, but that they just found a child's body in the park, and they're very busy. He says it's probably a boyfriend playing a joke and that he's sorry. And Mr. Harrison, we see, is in the police station, and he witnesses the whole conversation. Back at the sorority house, there's a fire in the fireplace. Jess is telling Peter that the police found a girl murdered in the park, and she's worried because her friend Claire is still missing. And Peter says Claire's all right, but he's also dismissive. He just doesn't seem very concerned. He tells Jess that he intends to leave the music school, and he intends to marry her. And she stares at him blankly. And Peter asks her to say something. Olivia Hussey as Jess shines numerous times throughout this movie. This is one of them. This monologue that she has with Peter where she's explaining to him, do you remember when we first met and you were explaining that you had all these hopes and dreams and desires, these things that you wanted to do? And she tells him, well, I still have my things that I want to do. And she's going, you can't expect me to just drop everything and marry you, and have this kid with you, start this life. And he's going, well, what does that have to do with anything? He's going, you can still do all these things. We can still get married. And she looks at him and she says, Peter, I don't want to marry you. And it's a very honest moment. You got to respect this girl because sometimes you got to do the hard thing. He takes a moment and then he says, okay, what about the baby? We cut back to the police station. Mr. Harrison is sitting at the desk of Lieutenant Fuller, as Fuller is questioning Sergeant Nash as to why they're not investigating the obscene phone calls. And Phyllis and Chris are sitting nearby. So Nash is getting the finger waved at him. Nash got the report from Jess just now about the obscene phone calls, and he brushed it off, and Mr. Harrison overheard the whole thing. Lieutenant Fuller explains, look, man, the calls are going to the same address of a girl who's recently missing. He's telling Sergeant Nash. A young girl was also just murdered in the park. Don't you think we should investigate these phone calls? And Nash is like, oh, well, yeah, I guess so. So everyone in the room unanimously agrees that Nash is a dumbass, and Phil, Chris, and Mr. Harrison all leave. Back at the house, we see Peter breaking an ornament from the Christmas tree, and he calls Jess a selfish bitch, and that she talks of having an abortion like she's talking about having a wart removed. Peter is slowly approaching Jess very menacingly, and he says, let's get one thing straight. You are not going to abort that baby.
Ooh, you don't tell a woman that.
He's totally being controlling and being a prick about it and going,
no wonder she doesn't want to marry you.
Yeah, you're a total asshole. And he's going, you didn't even ask me. On the other hand, I can see where he's coming from, that he obviously feels in some way that he loves this girl and he wants to keep her. And if she's pregnant with his baby, well, great, they can start this life. But his whole approach is just awful. It's not a good look. He says, you're not going to abort this baby. And she tells him he needs to leave. And he tells her that she's going to be very sorry. And he leaves as Phil, Lieutenant Fuller, and Graham, a telephone lineman, enter the house. Peter slams the door behind him, and he catches Lieutenant Fuller's attention, who looks back at him, kind of, what's that about? Graham, this new character played by Leslie Carlson, he's a telephone lineman. He begins a tap on the house telephone as Jess and Phil show Lieutenant Fuller up to Claire's room. Fuller is questioning the girls about Claire and the phone calls, and the girls give him a list of everyone who lives at the sorority and the phone numbers where they'll be for the holiday, and they head back downstairs. Graham has finished tapping the phone, so now if the house phone gets a call, it's going to ring at the police station as well, and Graham will be at the phone company, at the telephone exchange, and he'll be monitoring the source of the call. He'll try to find the source of the call. So we established that there's a second phone line in the house for the house mother, but there haven't been any calls received on it. Lieutenant Fuller informs the girls that a cop is parked outside if they need anything, and he and Graham leave. Outside, we see Peter peering at the house, hiding in the darkness. Inside, Phil is upset about Claire and goes to bed upstairs. Jess sits staring at the phone. Upstairs in the attic, Billy is crying and singing to Claire's dead body as he's rocking her in her chair. Jess sits downstairs by the fire and she's looking uneasy. Billy sneaks out of the attic and into a bedroom nearby, and we see Barb passed out in bed. Billy's point of view eyes a glass unicorn statue on the shelf above Barb. Downstairs, Jess suddenly hears Barb gasping upstairs, and Jess runs up into Barb's room and she opens the door and it's pitch black and the only light in the room comes in from the hallway. And Barb is gasping in bed and Jess comforts her. Barb pulls an inhaler and gets a hold of herself, and she tells Jess that she had a nightmare that a strange man was in her room, and she says that she would be so lucky. And
oh, Lord.
And we see Billy's perspective as he exits the room behind Jess and Barb. He exits the bedroom into the hallway.
What?
Jess...
And no, neither of them seeing it.
Neither of them see it. Jess hears carolers downstairs, and she leaves Barb to sleep. Jess opens the front door downstairs, and she stands listening to a choir of children singing, "Oh, come, let us adore him." Upstairs, Billy's point of view enters Barb's room once again. She's asleep. We can hear, as all this is happening, we can hear the children's choir singing this Christmas song downstairs. We can hear it over the soundtrack. He's standing above her bed, and he's holding the glass unicorn statue above his head, and he's saying, "Agnes, Agnes, it's me, Billy." Downstairs, the voices of the children's choir are building to a crescendo.
Oh, here we go.
Mm-hmm. And upstairs, Billy is standing over Barb, and he's got the glass unicorn raised above his head, and he whispers to Barb, "Don't tell them what we did, Agnes." And she wakes up and she sees his silhouette in the darkness, and she can see, because of the hallway light, just a line across his face, and she can see a single eye through the darkness as he's holding the statue. He begins stabbing her repeatedly with the glass unicorn, and Barb is gasping and screaming, but her cries are drowned out by the carolers downstairs. And it's just such a disturbing back and forth between the murder and the children's choir singing. You've got this awful thing happening upstairs as these little babies are singing the song about Jesus downstairs. And it's just really it's really hard to watch. It's just kind of gross, but it's awesome. Oh, and I'll tell you one more thing about that scene is one time, because I fall asleep to horror movies all the time. I put them on and pass out. And one time I put on Black Christmas and I woke up as Barb was being stabbed to death in bed. And the Christmas music was going off, and I was just like, "Oh God!" And I couldn't get to the TV enough to shut it off. And I love this movie, but it's just there's some stuff it's too much.
Looking around, you're like, "Oh, what?"
Yeah, it was like
me above you with a unicorn.
Well, yeah. Oh,
Richard,
God.
What are you doing?
Richard with the unicorn. Yeah. Don't tell them what we did, Brian. Stupid. Jess steps out to tip the carolers as one of the two young women accompanying the children ushers them back to their car in a hurry. And the woman left there informs Jess of the little girl murdered in the park. And inside, the phone begins to ring, and the woman's going, "Your phone's ringing. Are you going to answer it?" And so Jess excuses herself and tells him to have a good night. She heads in to answer the phone. And it's Billy, and he's moaning, and it sounds a lot like Barb in her sleep.
I would hate to get these calls. Like, oh my God.
Gross. So Lieutenant Fuller is listening in at the police station, and at the telephone exchange, we can see Graham searching the aisles, all of those automated machines. I can't pretend to know what he's looking for, but certainly you can hear the machines moving and latching and all this clicking and clacking and busy noises going on, and he's looking for something, and he's going down the aisles trying to find it. The utilization of the current phone technology at the time the way that it's used in this plot to build suspense, the way that he's going down the aisles and the way that we're waiting for him to maybe find what he's looking for, it's very just gut-wrenchingly suspenseful. So at the house, Jess listens as Billy is ranting, and it sounds like a woman and a man chastising a child. It's all these different voices, and all three voices are distinct, and they're going, "What your mother and I must know is," and Graham continues searching, and Billy then says, in a high-pitched voice, he says, "Just like having a wart removed." And then he hangs up.
It's like, how does...
So he's alluding to the conversation that she had in the house with Peter. She gets a call from Lieutenant Fuller, and he tells her she'll have to keep the caller on the line for longer so they can trace the call. They didn't get it. And he asks if the caller has always used different voices, and Jess says he has. And he also asks who the fellow was that stormed out of the sorority, and she tells him it was her boyfriend, Peter. There's a sudden commotion in the police station lobby, and Lieutenant Fuller tells Jess he'll call her back in a while. So we cut to Billy's POV as he watches Phil and Jess walking and talking in the second floor hallway, and they head downstairs debating if Peter may be the one who has been calling. Phyllis checks out a downstairs window to see if a cop car is still parked outside, and it is. And the phone rings, and it's Peter. And he's crying, and he's saying, "Please help me." And at the exchange, Graham commences searching the aisles, looking to trace the call. And Peter tells Jess on the phone, "We can't kill the baby. Don't hurt the baby." Jess asks him where he is, and he hangs up. And Graham wasn't able to trace the call, and he tells Lieutenant Fuller it wasn't long enough. So Fuller calls Jess, and he asks what Peter meant about killing the baby. And Jess is forced to admit her situation to Fuller, with Phyllis right next to her. Phyllis, her reaction, it looks like she didn't know this. And so Fuller questions her about Peter's character and if he's ever been around when she received a call. And she realizes that, yes, he was with her earlier tonight when she got the first call of the evening. Fuller is skeptical but lets her go. And she hangs up. And Fuller decides to expand the search on a house-to-house basis. So at the sorority, Phil is suddenly frightened when two members of the search party peer in through her window. And they're going house to house now. Jess and Phil answer the door, and the guys are harmless. They're just bumbling types. Back at the station, Fuller tells Sergeant Nash he wants all records on Peter Smythe, Jess's boyfriend. So back at the sorority, Phil is locking windows in the second-floor hallway when Barb's door suddenly shuts. And Phil walks over. It's dark. Phil walks over and slowly opens Barb's door, and she peers into the pitch-dark bedroom, and she steps in. She asks Barb if she's awake.
She's not.
She's not. The door...
She's on that forever sleep.
Oh, poor Barb. I feel so bad for her. She was so awesome. She was an asshole, but... So Phil walks over, and she opens Barb's door, asks if she's awake. She's not. The door suddenly closes shut.
In her face?
No. So Phil is peering into Barb's room, and the door suddenly closes shut, and it locks Phil in the room.
Oh, she's in the room.
Yes.
Oh, my God.
Back at the music conservatory, Lieutenant Fuller walks in the concert hall and he sees Peter's obliterated piano. We cut back to the house where Jess is locking doors and windows downstairs. She calls up the stairs for Phil, who of course doesn't answer. And Jess starts to head up the stairs and the phone rings.
We're getting to the finale of this movie, aren't we?
Yeah, we're getting to it. Jess answers. And it's Billy, and he's making pig squeals, and he's saying, "You fat pig." He starts screaming like a child being beaten or something, and he's going, in this child's voice, he's going, "No, Billy, no!" And then you hear screaming, "Where's the baby?" At the telephone exchange, Graham is sprinting down the rows. And at the conservatory, a police officer runs in and informs Lieutenant Fuller that Graham is tracing a call, and they exit. Graham finds what he's looking for, and he traces the call. Outside the conservatory, we see Fuller and his officer sprint out to their patrol car where they hear the last of the phone call. It looks like it's on the radio. They can hear the last of the phone call. Billy's ranting. Then Jess hangs up. Sergeant Nash radios Lieutenant Fuller. Lieutenant Fuller and the other officer are now seated in the car. Sergeant Nash radios Lieutenant Fuller and informs him that the calls are coming from 6 Belmont Street. And Fuller says, "No, that's where the calls are going to. You've got it wrong." And Nash says, "That's where they're coming from too, sir." And Fuller...
It's like, oh, shit.
Literally, he goes, "Oh, shit." He has an oh, shit moment, and he radios for Officer Jennings, who's posted outside of the sorority. And we cut to the patrol unit outside of the sorority, and Jennings' throat is slit. He's dead. And so, of course, he's not answering. Fuller instructs Nash to call Jess and get her out of the house without telling her what's going on, and that he's on his way to the sorority now. So at the house, Jess calls up the stairs once more for Phil, and there's no answer. The phone rings, and Jess answers it, and it's Sergeant Nash. He asks who it is, and she tells him. He asks if she's alone in the house, and she says no, that Barb and Phyllis are upstairs. Nash tells her to do exactly as he says, no questions. He tells her to hang up, walk out the front door, and leave. So the first thing she does is asks a question, and she goes, "What's wrong?" And he says, "Please just do what I tell you." And she says, "Okay, I'll get Phil and Barb." And he's going, No, don't do that, Jess." And then he tells her, "The caller is in the house. The calls are coming from the house." And she turns and looks up the stairs, and it's that same shot looking down the stairs that we've been utilizing all this time. And it's this great 70s zoom in on her face, on the reaction as she's holding the receiver and she's looking up the stairs. He tells her the calls are coming from the house, and we get that great...
You need to get out.
You got to get out, girl. And he pleads with her not to go upstairs. She ignores him. She doesn't hang up. She leaves it hanging by the cord. She goes to the stairs and she begins calling for Phil and Barb. There's no answer. She's frantic, pleading now and screaming for them to please answer. Olivia Hussey is such a wonderful actress. She sells this scene, her despair. Please answer. She eyes a poker by the fireplace and she grabs it and she slowly heads up the stairs. This isn't that classic, this dumb chick is heading up the stairs when she should be heading out the front door. Jess is doing this because she's a hero. She thought about what she's doing. She put the phone down so that the police were still on the phone. She grabbed a poker and she's going upstairs to try to rescue her friends. Awesome, heroic moment for Jess. Jess gets to the second floor and she slowly makes her way to Barb's room and she tries to open the door, but it won't budge. Jess leans her body into the door and she forces it open and she falls into the room and she sees the bloody corpses of Phyllis and Barb like entangled in bed. Jess begins to slowly back out of the room. It's pitch dark. She hears a whisper and it says, "Agnes, it's me, Billy." And she looks, and between the open door and its frame, Jess can see that someone is hiding behind the door, and she sees a single eye leering out at her, and it says, "Don't tell them what we did, Agnes." Ooh. And Billy begins to push the door open so he can step out from behind it, and Jess slams it against him with all her might, and she runs.
Boom!
So awesome.
She slams that door to him Pappin style.
Yes, Billy got it Pappin style. Jess is a badass, and she gave it to Billy Pappin style. So she slams the door against him Pappin style, and he screams, and he sounds cheated and pissed, and he's in pain, and he's raging out, and he's just making all this awful noise. Jess runs down the steps to the front door as Billy's making his way out of the bedroom. Downstairs, Jess tries to pry open the front door with no success because if we remember, yes, it jams shut, as we established earlier. She turns and she sees through the wooden railing of the staircase in the second floor hallway. She just barely sees this figure running down the hallway and running down the stairs in between the railing. It's so scary. And she begins running into the house now, trying to find a different exit, and she has to run by the staircase. And as she's running by the staircase, we see a single hand shoot out and grab her hair, and he's screaming and she screams, and he nearly overcomes her, but she manages to escape into a basement and she locks the door behind her.
Oh God.
And Billy, enraged, just slamming the door over and over, screaming maniacally with each blow. It just sounds awful. And you can hear the wood splintering, and you almost think the wood is going to give, and suddenly there's silence. And there's no more slamming, and there's no more screaming, and Jess is eyeing the door for a moment, and then she heads down into the basement. It's dark, dusty, and cluttered. Jess can hear strange muttering coming from outside, and she sees the shadow of a figure stoop down and peer through one of the basement windows. He calls for Jess, and it's Peter. Peter breaks the basement window open, and he crawls through. He searches the basement calling for Jess until finally he spots her hiding, and she's clutching the fireplace poker, and he comes toward her, and he's saying, "Jess, you had me worried. What are you doing down here?" And he's approaching her. We cut to the exterior of the house as police pull up, sirens wailing, and Lieutenant Fuller finds the dead police officer outside in the car, his throat slashed. The officers all hear Jess scream inside the house, and they make their way to the house. We cut to the basement where Fuller is leading the police down, flashlights in the dark, and they find Jess with Peter's dead body strewn across her lap, and his face is bloody from where she's beaten him. He's dead.
Oh my God. He was coming to help her, actually.
He's dead, and blood is trickling from his head and nose and mouth, and Jess looks like she's in shock. So we fade to Jess's bedroom. Jess is asleep in bed. She's surrounded by Lieutenant Fuller and a team of police officers, a doctor, and Mr. Harrison, Claire's father. Fuller says he knew in his gut that Peter was the killer, and from Fuller's conversation with the doctor, we established that Jess is going to be out for some time. Fuller wants to ask her a few more questions, and her parents are on the way. We hear a crowd clamoring outside, and Fuller tells an officer to get the press out of here and that he'll meet them at the police station. And Lieutenant Fuller exits the room and exits the movie. Mr. Harrison suddenly faints in his chair.
Oh my God.
And the doctors examine him and they say that he's in shock. And the doctor and an officer carry an unconscious Mr. Harrison out of Jess's room. And Jess is left alone in the room. An officer comes in and turns the lights off. The last of the officers all leave the house. It is now dark and silent. So we pan away from Jess, unconscious in bed, down the hall to Barb's room, and her bed is empty and stained with blood. And we continue down the hall to Claire's room, and we see her bed, and it's covered in clothing and luggage from a trip she never took. And we pan further down the hall, and we hear quiet giggling and quiet laughing and singing. And we continue to the nook with the ladder built into the wall leading to the attic and to the opening in the ceiling. And we cut to the interior of the attic, and we get a shot of Mrs. Mack hanging dead in the background, while Claire's lifeless body sits in the rocker in the foreground closest to the camera. And we can hear Billy whispering, "Agnes, it's me, Billy." And we slowly zoom out, coming out the attic window and into the cold winter night. Claire's plastic-wrapped body sits prominently in the window, and we get the feeling that the answer has been right there the whole time, if someone had just bothered to look. And we continue to zoom out into the night, and we end just where we started, on a sorority house at night, lit with Christmas decorations. And the phone begins to ring. And we stay focused on the house as the phone continues to ring through the credits. And that's Black Christmas.
And then the cops just think it was Peter, and it wasn't Peter.
It was not Peter.
Peter was coming to save her.
Mm-hmm. And that's what's awful, too, is that you still don't know who this person is.
It's just, it could be anybody.
Executives originally wanted Bob Clark to change the ending. They wanted a definitive ending, and they wanted it to end with Peter standing over the bed going, "Agnes, it's me, Billy. Don't tell them what we did." And I think that would have been so lame. I think the ambiguity of it all is much scarier. And it's also really sad, too, because it's like Claire's dad never gets any closure, right?
Yeah.
He, faints from the shock at the end of the movie. They never find his kid. She's right there in the window the whole time, and still nobody's...
Even during the daytime, people could be walking outside the house, and nobody notices it.
Mm-hmm. Brutal. A couple of things to note before we end horror reels. Although we never see Billy's face, of course, he was physically played by Nick Mancuso, who also did a lot of the phone voices. Bob Clark provided some phone voices as well. So something else I wanted to say, there's this infamous little interview where Bob Clark comments on how at one point after Black Christmas, he was making a movie with John Carpenter. This movie never came to fruition. John Carpenter had expressed that he was a huge fan of Black Christmas and asked Bob Clark if he would ever consider making a sequel. And Bob Clark said no, he wasn't really interested in just doing horror. He wanted to expand his horizons and do different things, which is a good thing he did because we got A Christmas Story. John Carpenter said, "Well, what would you do if you did do a sequel?" And apparently Bob Clark told him, "If I did do a sequel, I would set it in the next year in the fall, and Billy has been caught, and he breaks out of an insane asylum, and he goes back to the sorority house and stalks these girls." And
Sounds like Halloween almost.
And I would call it Halloween.
Oh my God.
Beyond that, the movies don't share a whole lot, but they do share some striking similarities, like an opening POV shot from the killer's perspective. They're both about these two killers that stay primarily in the shadows and stalk young women.
Yep.
So very interesting to note. Highly suggest this classic to anybody who hasn't seen it. It is a staple in the horror community. It is a cornerstone of the slasher subgenre. Its influence is widespread and far. Go watch it. Black Christmas, 1974. Where can the people find us on social media?
All right, they can find us on X at bonebarrelpod, and they can also email us at bonebarrelpod@gmail.com.
Join us for our next episode of the Bone Barrel Podcast. For our Horror Reels segment, we will be covering our first TV show.
And for real horrors, we've got a true crime case that actually involves a TV show.
Awesome. I'm so excited. Thank you guys for joining us for this Christmas episode. Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays.
I'm Brian.
I'm Richard.
And thank you for listening
to the Bone Barrel Podcast.